Hello, everybody, and welcome back. It is time for another episode of the Wagon Sports Podcast. We have a ton to talk about, but first up, if you're listening with Spotify or Apple or Google, anything, it's going to be the exact same. But if you're watching over on our YouTube, we have fancy new layouts, and this is something we're really excited about. Makes us look a little bit more professional, so we can say more dumb shit. But
Yeah, we have to counterbalance it throughout the episode now.
Pretty sure my cat just broke something, but it is what it is. Yeah, like we said, we have a ton to get into. It's our Pac-12 preview this week, our AFC and NFC North preview. We got a lot of golf and a lot of racing to talk about. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Starting with NASCAR, we're going to throw it over to Slade, and let's get the show on the road.
Yeah, so this past weekend, Harvick went back to back. He won at Michigan 2 weeks ago, and then this past weekend at Richmond. Um, really didn't see it happening from the start of the race. He just wasn't the fastest car out there. Sort of like Michigan though, his car, they came in for a pit stop and they just kind of turned it on somehow. It's just like they got a switch in his car. Um, Hamlin had some problems on pit road again, and or no, wait, sorry, he pitted off cycle, um, which kind of put him in a different part of the track for majority of the race than once they started doing that. It was really interesting to see, and at the end of the race, unlike last week with Harvick pulling away, we got to see Christopher Bell kind of come from the back because he had spun out earlier in the race, and he was charging hard for Harvick. Harvick just hasn't been out front at all this year, and we saw at the end of the race, he stated he missed his gears a couple times. He was shifting on the front stretch instead of the back stretch and vice versa. It was just really interesting to see from someone that's been racing for over, what, 20 years now in NASCAR. It was funny to see. What were your guys' thoughts on this past weekend? I mean, we had Elliott, another top 5. I just had to throw that out there just to throw that at George, and then, we still have a really tight, points battle if there are no more winners. Truex trails Blaney by 26 points right now, I think.
Yep.
So, George, we'll start with you. What were your thoughts on the race at Richmond?
I honestly did not see a lot of it. I was focused on the FedEx Cup playoffs, but luckily, I did get to switch over in time, especially once I saw Harvick was leading. It was about 20 laps ago. I flipped over. Actually, it was earlier than that. It was when they're making their last green flag stops. Um, but yeah, great ending to the race. Chris Buescher got up there right after the final green flag cycle and was pushing Harvick for the win, and then his car just kind of fell off. And then out of nowhere, uh, Christopher Bell chased Harvick down. It didn't really help that, like you said, I don't know if it was in his head or what he was, if he was just too focused on trying to get around the cars, he wasn't thinking about what else he was doing. Yeah, he was missing the shifts, but getting through lap traffic and stuff, Bell closed. I think it was like 6 seconds and like 4 laps. It was something crazy. Um, but like I said, as a Harvick fan, it's awesome to see him not only get back to back wins, but just 2 wins. When weeks ago we were talking about this guy missing the playoffs completely. Um, he finally has some luck going his way at Pocono. He was challenging for the win there late when they had all those restarts. Gets taken out, by an accident that wasn't even his fault. Um, but this is something that's like the rest of the NASCAR teams need to be put on notice now that this is something that I would be concerned about if I was another NASCAR team. Um, this is a championship driver. He's won a championship before, a championship crew chief. This is a team hungry to prove that they can still compete in NASCAR. A lot of people have written Stewart Haas Racing off as a whole here, especially as a late, before Harvick's 2 wins. Um, and now all of a sudden he has back-to-back wins. They're getting ready to go into the playoffs, and a lot of the playoff tracks he runs very well at. Bristol, Darlington. You look at Texas. Texas is one of his best tracks. And so it,
In the
it,
last
it can
one.
yeah, and Phoenix is his best track. He has 6 wins there. This is a team that if they get hot going in the playoffs, they could out of nowhere, win a championship. So the rest of the NASCAR needs to be put on notice.
Yeah, Nick, what were your thoughts on the race this past weekend? He got his 60th win also.
Yeah, congrats on getting 64. To be honest with you, you said it best last week. I guess it would have been. He said, his team said they had the car all season to get these wins. They just couldn't really put it together. He's put two in a row in now, which I think is all the proof we need in what his teammates said that he's had this car just waiting for the right opportunity. And like George said, great time to be catching momentum, especially when you struggled, throughout the major part of the year. So if you're a Kevin Harvick fan, it's great to see. If you're not, well, suck, fuck, suck, I guess.
I just hope he doesn't piss off Chase Elliott going to the playoffs again because I don't need those two fucking going at it and give me another heart attack. And then just real quick, I actually forgot about it until you just said about it. Yeah, he has 60 wins now. He ties Kyle Busch. I think it's fifth place on the all times list now. The only person ahead of him, and well, in Kyle Busch now, but um, the only person ahead of him right now is Dale Earnhardt. And a lot of people are talking about like if you would have told me in 2001 after Dale Sr. passed away that the guy replacing him was going to be, getting ready to pass his win total. That's some special stuff. And ever since he's taken over that 29 ride at Childress, he has had the ultimate respect for Dale Sr. Now, obviously, we don't know if he's going to get there. There's still a lot of races left and a lot of things that can go wrong, but um, it would be very special if he was able to catch him.
Yeah, definitely, and it was also cool. I don't know if we mentioned it, but not this past weekend, but the weekend before at Michigan, he actually put his daughter in the car with him to do the victory lap because during the COVID year, he had his son in the car, which was really
Yeah,
cool to see. And so, yeah, it was really cool to see that his kids were there at the track, seeing him win these last 2 weekends now.
yeah.
Um, what are your guys' thoughts on is there going to be 16, 17 winners? Do you think that Blaney's going to be able to hold Truex off and get in on points? What are your guys' thoughts there, just from a playoff standpoint?
Um,
Nick or George, yeah, sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely still see another winner coming. If not this weekend at Watkins Glen, absolutely Daytona. A lot of guys are going to go in there and say, "Hey, I have nothing to lose," and you have guys like Austin Dillon and Ricky Stenhouse who are not afraid to wreck the entire field. I think it's going to be absolute mayhem, and I 100%. I'm not saying it's a lock guarantee that I would put down. We have a first time winner, but it that probably has the best chance of getting us our 16th winner of the year. Blaney is a very good road course racer, so he could definitely lock himself in this weekend. Um, if it comes down to points, I'm giving the edge to Blaney. I think he just overall has had a more consistent season. Yeah, he's had some really shitty luck here the past couple weeks, with strategies and cautions coming out at the wrong times. Um, but I think just overall, he's been much more consistent than Truex, and I think honestly, underneath of him, he has a better car. We've talked a lot about Toyota's dominance this year. Chevy has shown that they are the best car at times, but they fall off. Ford has almost been non-existent this year, outside of Harvick's last two wins. And then Logano won a couple times this year as well. But really, Toyotas week in week out are consistently up there in the top of the running order, showing that they're the best cars. But Truex, outside of qualifying, has not shown that. He's been in contention for some races, but not really. So I mean, if you put those two cars head to head, I'm going to take excuse me, I'm going to take Blaney. And just the last thing I want to say, you think back to Michigan last week. Truex ran Blaney down, passed him, and Blaney got into the wall, and everybody's like, "Oh, okay, well Blaney's going to fall back now." 3 laps later, Blaney came out of nowhere and passed Truex back, and actually ended up passing, I think, another car too. So I mean, to me, that pretty much just summed up the playoff battle if it comes down to points. But like I said, I definitely see at least one more winner coming.
Yeah, Nick, what are your thoughts on the playoff battle? Do you think that points play a factor here in a couple of weeks, or do you think that someone gets enough, one or two people get a win here, and that decides it?
Yeah, I'm still sticking with my guns here. I'm gonna say that we're gonna get that 16th winner. I do, however, think it very well could be Blaney. He's sitting there. If there's not an extra winner or another winner, he's sitting right where he needs to be to end up making it in anyway. But if you would have told me at the beginning of the season the kind of season Blaney would have had and wouldn't have a win yet, especially early on in the year when he was running great, not that he's necessarily been running bad, but um, I probably wouldn't have believed you. And here it is. We got 2 weeks left in the regular season. He doesn't have a win yet, but he's sitting right there in that 16th spot as it sits currently. I think that um, he's probably going to be, even though he's technically sitting safe right now, he's going to be somebody that wants to cement his place in the playoffs, doesn't want to just get lucky and take a chance squeaking in off points. So he's definitely going to be somebody to watch here in the next 2 weeks to try to get that 16th spot locked up.
Yeah, so think that I think that there will be another winner, but I think that Truex has the best chance, and I think it's this weekend. I think he's really good at Watkins Glen. Um, my favorite race win for Chase Elliott all time, which is crazy to think because the Roval win that he had is pretty up there with wrecking and then being able to race through the field and get back and get the win. Is him and Martin Truex Jr. just being way out in front of the field, just flying around the track for 5 laps. Truex trying to push Elliott to make a mistake, and then Elliott eventually running out of gas after passing the start finish line. So I think Truex has the best chance at getting the win to get in. I do think that it's not gonna matter with points, but I think it's also hard to think of someone other than Blaney and Truex that could get a win at a track that's not Daytona, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
And I mean, Truex definitely. This is one of his better tracks that we're going through this weekend. Just like I said, in my mind, just looking at the season as a whole, um, as far as as far as he's concerned, it's just been underwhelming for me to see him run. I mean, he can definitely almost be like Harvick. Hey, we head here to one of his best tracks, and out of nowhere, he just flips a switch, and here we are. And I mean, you want to talk about a dangerous team heading into the playoffs if they start to get hot. Um, Truex Jr. is definitely one of those teams. Again, a past champion, a veteran crew, and somebody who most likely is getting ready to go into his last season. It could definitely be dangerous for the NASCAR field. So, a lot of the people have started to write these old guys off. Hamlin, Harvick, Truex Jr., Kurt Busch, and they're sticking around and they're showing that they're not done yet. So,
yeah, very true. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see this weekend. Do either you have a pick that you think will be the winner this weekend if you had to put money down?
Chase Elliott.
Um, I don't necessarily have anybody in mind. I mean, road courses always add a little extra to the racing, and with how close we are to the playoffs and only one spot available, I don't know if I'd feel comfortable picking anybody.
I'm actually seriously. I'm gonna pick Dana Suarez, simply for the fact, we go to these other newer road courses on the NASCAR schedule. You look at the Indy Road Course, Road America, um, I forget, Circuit of the America, a lot of
Roto, yeah.
Americas, goddamn. Um, and you think of the traditional NASCAR road courses for years, it was just Sonoma and Watkins Glen. Um, and Suarez knows obviously how to get around both of them. Um, he won at Sonoma, and I have him winning at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, I kind of agree. My pick was one of the Trackhouse teams. I think that they're both gonna go ballsy when it comes to their pit strategy because that's
Mhm.
what it comes down to here with these, who comes in first under green flag. I mean, if there's a bunch of cautions, obviously it's anyone's game at that point,
Yeah,
who's willing to push someone through the corner the most. But I think if it does come down to pit strategy, I think that both those teams are willing to push the issue the most, um, to put themselves in the best situation for the end of the race. I think that a lot of the Hendrick teams that are very good at the road course, the Hendrick, drivers, I think that they're gonna play it safe. They're just trying not to get any DNFs going into the playoffs. So I think when it comes to, like, the road course racers, I think that the 2 Trackhouse teams and Martin Truex are gonna be the 3 cars to push it the hardest this weekend.
yeah. And speaking of Trackhouse, we have it scrolling across the bottom here. Kimi Räikkönen is coming over and running the NASCAR race this weekend. I'm super excited for that. He was my favorite F1 driver. Um, he has raced in NASCAR before. He did the Charlotte race in both the Truck Series and it was the Nationwide Series at the time. Didn't really do great, but I mean, you take an F1 racer, you throw him on an oval. We saw with Juan Pablo Montoya, Marcus Ambrose, all those foreign guys that came over did it. They didn't really do that great. Um, Super excited to see him wheel around Watkins Glen this weekend in a Trackhouse car, which I'm sure they've put a lot of money and R&D into to make the best possible car. That's definitely a car I could see up there competing, and I would love nothing more than seeing Kimi Räikkönen win the race. Like that would be exciting.
Do they have, track dryers, like, on the tracks at other countries? Like, or
No,
is it a possibility we see a second, um, non-US driver come over and hit a, air dryer?
no, yeah, F. I don't, yeah, F1 doesn't use it as far as I know, just because they run wet
They
races
run
and
rain tires,
but
right?
yeah. But hey, NASCAR has that too, so I'm sure it turned into an
Yeah.
absolute shit show watching another NASCAR rain race.
Um, are you guys ready to talk about Zalatoris' big weekend?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So Zalatoris won this past weekend. It was a thriller. We got to see a playoff, and it was, I'm gonna butcher the name, Straka, but George is gonna say it the correct way.
Straka. You were close.
Straka. Okay.
Yeah.
Um. Anyway, they played it out. This was crazy to see Zalatoris in a playoff just to begin with, because it was just a week ago that he fired his caddy on, I think, Friday, and then
2 weeks.
this
Yeah.
week, was it 2 weeks ago? Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the first tournament that his caddy was there for, and won $270,000 as a caddy this weekend. Pretty crazy to think about. Zalatoris would have missed that putt at the playoffs earlier this season, but he got it done this weekend. What were your guys' thoughts on that? Nick, we'll start with you. What were your thoughts on the tournament this weekend?
Yeah. So I said in the group chat, fucking finally. Um, I've been rooting for Zalatoris all season, and
Talking the most shit against them too. But
I have talked because he's let me down so many
how do you
times.
think I feel? I've been a fan of
Yeah,
this for
I
two
know
fucking
you're.
years now.
Yeah. I mean, I seen it coming, and then I didn't happen to be able to watch at the end of Sunday, but I was following along on the scoreboard, and you guys were texting about it. Um, so I happened to turn it on like right when he shot that. I'm not sure what hole it was on because I wasn't really listening. I was just kind of watching, but the shot that everybody's seen where he somehow manages to keep it on the stone wall.
Oh my god, that yeah.
And I know not only me, but everybody watching, and I'm pretty sure, judging by his body language, he was also thinking, "I've fucked it up again."
Yeah.
And here comes Straka right after him, and happens to plant his right in the water. Um, I This is my first season watching golf, but I cannot imagine that I'm gonna see anything like that again anytime soon. Um, I could hit a shot twice as good as that and not get a lucky bounce. Not that I physically could hit a better shot, but you know what I mean. That was insane. I have no idea how it stayed there, but I'm happy to say that I finally got to watch this man win. Like George said, I've talked a lot of shit recently. Um, I had seen in the broadcast that they were talking about he adjusted his putter grip like inches with his one hand, and that pretty much made all the difference in him missing a shit ton of putts to the way he putted this past weekend. So hopefully we get to see that stay up, and he keeps this momentum and challenges here come the end of the playoffs. So I'm excited.
Yeah, George, what were your thoughts this past weekend? Me and you were texting back in the group chat with Nick.
Yeah. No, throughout the whole weekend, it was a lot of fun. Like we said on last week's episode, this is especially here in the playoffs, you get to these tournaments. It's not just about who's at the top of leaderboard. It's hey, this guy's trying to continue his season and give himself a shot. Um, we saw guys all day Sunday, especially. At one point, the margin between 70th and 71st was 0.001 points. Like it was that intense, and they were like, if it finishes this way, like this is the tightest ever. It ended up being, I think 3 points was the difference, which was I think third closest cutoff after the first playoff event. Um, but watching Straka and Zalatoris duel it out on 18, um, twice and then having to go to 11. That was just insane to watch. You go back to regulation, Zalatoris is a group ahead. He gets down there, not a great tee shot. Everybody was surprised he took driver, didn't understand why he did that. And then he's able to recover, stick it within 10 feet, and makes par. He hit that huge putt. And like we've said before, his biggest thing is he's a fantastic ball striker. He has a beautiful swing, couldn't fucking putt to save his life. He's lost a lot of the majors because of that. We go back to the U.S. Open. He has a chance to hit I think it was a 12-foot putt to send it to a playoff, and he shanked it to the left a little bit. But they were talking on the broadcast. He brings in this new caddy who is really good at making these green reads, and like you said, he worked with his coach a lot in his downtime. And yeah, like you said, it so what they were talking about is it says super stroke on his putter grip, and if his hand was above the E, he couldn't control his swing as well, and he shank it left or right. But he found out if he puts it like as long as his top finger is touching the bottom of that E, It's perfect, you saw that in effect. And once they said that on the broadcast, literally every putt they zoomed in on his putter
Yeah.
grip. Like, is his hand below?
Mhm.
Um, but he had just so much confidence in his putter stroke this week. Um, and he gets to the tournament on Thursday, and they're like, "Oh, what happens if you don't make the cut this week?" His fiance asked him the same thing, like, "Oh, what are we doing this weekend?" Because he shot, I think it was like a 72 on Thursday,
Mhm.
and everybody's like, "Well, if we don't make the cut, like, what do you want to do this weekend?" He's like, "Fuck you talking about?" Goes out on a Friday and shoots, I think it was 63. And everybody's like, "Oh, okay, I guess we're making guess we're making the cut."
Yeah.
Um, but just wildly consistent, which was so good to see for him. And if I'm in the PGA Tour now, I'm looking at that going, "Oh shit," you thought Scotty Scheffler was bad. This is somebody this is his first full year in the PGA Tour. Um, we saw last year in essentially his rookie year, finished second at the Masters, finished top 10 in just about every major tournament we went to. And this year again, he was putting on the field. He just couldn't close it out. He finally did. Um, Hopefully that gives him enough confidence to carry through, not just the rest of the playoffs, but the rest of his career. And it could be very dangerous and a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, so I mean, like you were saying, he shot a 71 on Thursday, and then went out and shot a 63 on Friday, and it's just really beating Straka because Straka started with the 64 on Thursday, and then followed it up with the 66 on Friday. Just to think that those scores, like just to think a 64 on Thursday and a 71 on Thursday out of Zalatoris, that they would be playing in a playoff on Sunday, you just wouldn't think it. Like, you would think like, "Oh, Zalatoris shot that. Oh, he had a good day Friday," but, like, there's no way he's gonna continue to shoot, like, mid-60s to be able to get to that point, and he just got it done. I mean, he's obviously got a lot of confidence in this new caddy. It seems like based on, like, what you were saying in the broadcast that this caddy, really has a reputation behind his name, and, it's definitely well deserved, it seems, that in his first week, he cashed a check for 270K. Um, that's just off of the
I,
win. I can't
I
imagine what
think,
Zalatoris is paying him.
yeah, I think the biggest difference, and I don't know what his previous caddy was like, and I don't want to sit here and say, "Oh, that caddy fucking sucked," because obviously he did good enough to get Zalatoris to second place at the Masters last year, like you said. Um, but this is a caddy who, if I want to say, if anybody else was there on 11 on the third playoff hole, when like you said, Zalatoris's ball goes up there, bounces back and forth on those two rocks, and again, anybody else it would have fallen back in because you saw Straka hit almost the exact same spot. It one hopped and went back into the water. Um, and Zalatoris is sitting there going, "I'm going to hit this ball," as it's pushed up against the green. Um, it would have ruined his
And
day
you and
if
I
that
are
had happened.
texting back and forth
Going,
saying that
"Don't do
he's
it,
an
don't
idiot
do it."
if he
Oh my
does
god.
that.
Yeah, I was a nervous wreck watching that. I'm sitting, I'm eating dinner as this is happening. I'm going, just take the drop, just take the drop. That's all you got to do. Um, I think if Straka, when Straka took his shot, if Straka stuck it on the green anywhere within a makeable putt, I think Zalatoris is going to go for it. Um, Once Straka overshot the green, was in the far side bunker. I think it kind of sank in, especially with more convincing from his caddy. He's like, "Hey, listen, we're in a really good spot. We go take the drop. You just get this on the green. You two putt, and we win." Straka, he just went into the bunker. Now he's got to chip out, most likely a two putt, but you can't guarantee it. Probably one putt, but still, we're fine. Just go take the drop. And that was a nerve wracking 5 minutes because it took way longer than it should have. But
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, like
Still
you do not.
ridiculous. As soon as Straka hit his ball into the water, he should have gone back and hit from the drop zone. It's just ridiculous that it took Straka and the way the event happened. So, Straka was still farthest away from being in the bunker after his drop shot on the far side. So, Zalatoris got to watch Straka hit the ball 3 times before he decided. So
Yeah,
he hit it, and then Straka hits his into the water, then Straka hits from the drop zone over, then Straka hits out of the bunker into the other bunker, and it's just ridiculous that it took all of that to make him realize that he shouldn't try and hit this ball into the grass that's an inch over top of his ball, and it just plopped back into the water.
I
Like,
mean,
he had to have
I
hit a shot like that before for him to have that much confidence. and thinking
I
that
mean,
that was a better option than dropping it and hitting a gap wedge the 90 yards or the whatever, yeah, I think it was like 92 yards what they, decided his distance was to the pin from the drop zone.
I 100% agree. As somebody, like we said, somebody sitting at home going, "What are you doing? Like, this isn't going to work out." At the same time, you need to put yourself in his shoes. This is somebody who has come so close to winning so many tournaments. He was in 3 playoffs this year alone, and came up short. If I'm putting myself in his shoes, I'm standing there in that situation going, "Should I go take the drop?" It's the safe play, but the safe play has fucked me before, and I've lost. And I'm sure once Straka hit his third actual shot, it would have been his fourth with the drop. It probably sank in a little bit more, but it was probably, like I said, more so convincing from the caddy to be like, "Listen, you got this. You're fine. You've stuck these par three greens all day. You've been putting it on the field. You're a shit shit ton closer. You just need to stick it on the green." And then he ended up one putting for a freaking bogey. So, um, like you said, I 100% agree with you. Like if I'm in that situation, going, "Well, shit, I'm going back there and taking the drop." Then again, I'm not a professional. I would have
Yeah,
tried the shot and then gone and taken the fucking drop. But um, like I said, this is somebody who's just been in a situation so many times where you're sitting there going, "When am I going to win? Like, how many times am I going to cost myself my first win?" And then he's sitting there again in a playoff going, "We've gone back and forth. I want to end this now." And like I said, if they made him choose right then and there when Straka's ball was in the water, and
He was
we
hitting
didn't
it.
know we didn't know what his next shot was going to be. He was 100% going to go for it. Would it have ended badly? Yeah, we all know that. But that's he. It was more so desperation than anything. And finally, I think, like I said, after the third shot, he's like, "Okay, I can do this. Just got to go stick my shot and then two putt, and we either go to another playoff hole or Straka misses a putt and I win." So, um,
Yeah, so
like you
the
and
said,
broadcast oh, sorry, Nick, go.
no, you're good. I was just gonna say real quick. We've mentioned his name a lot, but I just wanted to take a second. Straka's somebody that we haven't talked about, haven't really heard a whole lot about this season. Obviously, he snuck into the top 125 to make it to the playoffs. Um, but minus matching Zalatoris trying to throw the playoff, um, he showed a lot of composure and a lot of confidence, especially on that back nine on Sunday. He was down one stroke, I believe, somewhere near going into the back nine. I don't remember if it was um, still in the front nine or not, but he's down a stroke. He ended up catching that back up and managed to hang with Zalatoris as Zalatoris was trying to win it outright. So again, I just wanted to take a second to show appreciation of that. Somebody that's probably not used to being in that situation, at least on the PGA Tour. And until he got to the playoffs, he handled that very well. So
Yeah, so what I wanted to say is the broadcast they had talked about while Zalatoris is debating whether he's going to hit this ball or not. As soon as he decided to go to the drop, they were like, you know that. So I guess Monday, all of the members at that course get to come out and play the course while everything's still set up with the championship stuff, the banners, everything's still set up.
mhm.
And they said, you know that every member is going to attempt that shot
Oh, there
on the
was
11th
videos going
here,
around. Yeah.
and you will know whether that was going to work or not.
No, I
um,
saw a video the very next day, and some guy tried it, and
yeah.
he, I obviously these guys that go out there on the Wendy are not the professionals, but still, this guy topped his ball, and it didn't even go forward. It literally freaking rolled backwards into the water, and he goes, "Yeah, you made the right call."
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, it you're they were saying that, like, the odds of him not skidding the rock before hitting the ball, like, it was so hard to get underneath that ball, which is what he was gonna need to do to get the ball up over top of the grass, because it was just right between the rock that's sitting, like, a whole 2 inches below the grass.
yeah,
Just a crazy shot that
and not even just
he
grass. Like there was
definitely
legit dirt there. Like
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's just crazy the amount of time that they were thinking through that. Um Did you guys have anything that stuck out other than the playoff on this past weekend, like, any specific shots or anything like that that you wanted?
Cam Smith getting fucked over was interesting to see. Now, when I say fucked over, what he did was wrong. Yes, I 100% agree. The fact that it took the PGA Tour almost a full day to catch it and give him a penalty, I thought was bullshit. Um, I follow No Laying Up on Twitter. I love their golf content, especially. But they said when you have a situation like that, it needs to stay in the day. Like if you catch it, this happened on Saturday. If you catch that mistake on Saturday, fine. It's all square. That's fine. If you wait until like minutes before he tees off on Sunday, it needs to be squashed. Like, hey, we missed this penalty, but it's fine. Um, Waiting until he was getting ready to tee off on Sunday in contention to go win, I thought was horseshit. I understand there's a lot of rumors going around with him. Is he leaving? Is he not? So on. If and I really hope that had nothing to do with that decision. But um, if that is the case, I can 100% see why he's leaving. And like I said, I just think it's bullshit
It
waiting
was
until
just
the
fuel
last.
to the fire.
Yeah, just waiting till the last possible minute.
Yeah.
It's chicken shit and it's bullshit. I didn't agree with it, but that's all I have to say.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
to build on that, he's out this coming week with some hip discomfort. A lot of sources have said that he's kind of been dealing with this for months, and I had sent you guys kind of what you're talking about. Everybody thinks he's going to live golf after the playoffs are done. Uh, a lot of people were saying that this two-stroke penalty, especially the day after, might have kind of been PGA's way of saying, you know what, you're not winning this, and then riding off into the sunset. Um, and the reason I brought up the hip injury is because to me, if you're somebody that has been dealing with something for months, I, I understand that it could get worse, but he's played a lot of golf in the last couple months, and to be in the position to try to win the FedEx Cup playoffs and then turn around and say, "Oh, well, this hip discomfort I've been dealing with for a little while is all of a sudden bugging me so bad that I can't play this weekend." Um, it definitely, at the very least, it raises a lot of questions as to the validity of some of these stories that are coming out. Now, obviously, if the playoffs end and he does end up going to live, I think that um, I wouldn't necessarily say seals the case, um, but it's definitely going to raise a lot more questions and make people wonder, okay, was there some truth behind these stories that are coming out?
I mean, I'm not denying that his hip feels uncomfortable, but at the same time, I
Yeah,
don't think he's competed since the Open. So if this has been bothering him for a while, why wasn't this something you took care of with your what almost 4 weeks of off
yeah. Well,
time?
that's
Um,
another thing too. It's
yeah.
there's some things that don't add up.
But the other thing I saw was because this weekend's the BMW Championship, he withdrew because he doesn't want to be associated with BMWs because he has 2 Bugattis now from his live contract,
hmm.
and I thought that was funny, but yeah, I think he's 100% gone, and whether the PGA Tour absolutely 100% knows it, I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up withdrawing from next week as well. Just kind of like I've heard some people say, "Listen, the PGA's like you're not playing again. Like you're done." So we'll come up with some plausible excuse, and you can be on your way, but we don't want you here. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens next week.
Yeah, and another thing, real quick, like if you're PGA and you want to keep your top players, like, I mean, obviously, if he made his decision up and the PGA knew about it, a little too late, whatever. Um, But if maybe he said, "Look, I'm not 100% sure. I'll play these playoffs out and see how I feel afterwards," and then you were like, "Oh, you know what? Fuck you. Here's two strokes a day after you made the mistake." That's not a good way to keep players. Obviously, this is all speculation. We won't really know unless more comes out. But nonetheless, uh, wild first FedEx Cup playoff for me to watch. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just a bad weekend to be Cam Smith, to be honest, because it all just happened to where the spotlight has really been magnified on him ever since it came out that there was a possibility of him going to live. Um, the fact that the stroke, um, the 2 strokes being added day after. So they do a review of all of the rounds at the end of the day, no matter what tournament it is. So this has been something that's happened for a while, and they said that they've given out multiple stroke penalties day after plenty of times in the past. It's just there's just such this spotlight on Cam Smith. I mean, you had the first day Scheffler walking through his fucking putting line, and then that being the talk about how, oh, Scheffler walked right through his line. He's like, this is like a goodbye gift to you as you go to live tour, you know? And there was the drama there. And then the next day, before they started their round, they both said, like, we didn't think that. Like, Scheffler, like, they agreed that that wasn't the case. And then you get a day or so of nothing being said about him and Liv. And then the very next day, he's assessed the two-stroke penalty. And all of a sudden, it's all the way back on it to where it's like, "Fuck Cam Smith, he's going to live, like, screw him, he's the black sheep of the PGA Tour," like, you know? And so then as soon as the tournament ends, then he comes out with this, and so I personally think that this hip discomfort, like you guys were saying, is his it's the PGA Tour. They've found or somehow been leaked to his contract signing, and it's probably against his contract with the PGA to be able to compete, like, with the Players Associate, the PGA Players Association, whatever deal he has, it's probably against it that he can't sign with another league. And so if that's the case, I think that we'll find that out real quick. If he withdraws next week, then it's guaranteed that he's going to the Live Tour because this is the playoffs. So you don't withdraw because you have a little bit of discomfort in your hip.
Yeah.
He can still make hundreds of thousands of dollars just going out and playing Thursday and Friday next week. So it's just unfortunate to see. And
I mean, it's at the same time though, if this is a 100% legit reason. Hey, my hip doesn't feel the greatest. He's already locked into the tour championship next week. Like you said, yeah, he could go out there and make a couple $1,000s and miss the cut. At the same time, you know, most of that money he was going to make missing the cut anyway. He was going to
I'm
make
talking
sitting at
about
home.
next week.
I'm just saying, like, as far as this week, like, yeah, if he withdraws next week, I mean, if he withdraws next week and we know he's going to live, it doesn't matter how much money he would have made
Yeah.
missing the
Mhm.
cut.
He's gonna make a
'Cause-
whole hell of a lot
Yeah,
more.
but like, as far as this week, like, hey, okay, 100% he has his hip discomfort. Let's take a week off before we go play the tour championship. Um, yeah, again, it's a valid reason. Hey, I'm not gonna put more wear and tear on my body. I'm gonna go rest up for a week, and then I'm gonna go to the tour championship in Atlanta, and I feel fresh. I'm fine. I know I'm locked in there. I don't have to worry about Uh, I yeah. I again, if it's a valid reason, great. I hope he feels better soon. But like we said, we'll have to wait and see, and we'll see what comes out next week, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see all of what comes out. PGA had their meeting yesterday and then today with all the players and stuff. Tiger flew in. We got to see all the videos of him and Rory getting into a Mercedes or whatever and driving off the tarmac.
The memes that came out of that were hilarious,
Yeah.
because it was him and Ricky Fowler, and they got in the car, and Tiger started driving, and everybody was like, "Ricky Fowler's in the passenger seat, putting, like, 30 fucking seatbelts on him," going,
Yep.
"Hey, let's keep it on the road this time." I thought that shit
Tiger
was hilarious.
showed up in a fucking flannel and jeans, and it's
Yeah.
like, I've never seen this man wear flannel in my life.
I know, it looked like he just walked out of the woods after cutting down trees all
Yeah,
day. He was like
yeah,
he had the limp and everything, and he just got done work.
yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
"Oh, shit."
He looks like a 70-year-old that just lives out in the woods. Yeah, so, uh Nick, first off, how are you drinking Dunkin' Donuts at 10 o'clock at night?
I know, I saw that. What
Bro,
the fuck, buddy?
I stopped on the way home. They were
I
still
don't
Oh
open.
my god. You know that they definitely thought that you were a nurse at the hospital or something because those the only people
Oh,
getting
probably.
coffee at 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah, probably. I was like, shit, I'm fucking tired. I got a podcast to do. Give me some coffee.
bro, if I showed up to the hospital and he was my nurse, I 100% would just kill myself on the spot.
It's honestly
You just
thirsty. So
That would
great.
wrap the
that would
Paul
be my
Sox
first
cord around your
sensation.
neck.
Yeah.
Um, you guys ready to move into college football?
Fuck yeah!
Always.
George's got the excitement tonight.
Damn right.
Um, so you gotta switch our banner, buddy.
Hold on. Oh, I gotta put my hat on first.
Uh,
Oh,
okay,
holy
okay, okay.
shit. Was that hat from 1860?
1994.
Oh, I see. I see.
Last time they were there.
It is not.
Anyway, well, it's not hard when the winner of your division gets a guaranteed spot in that bowl. Uh, so Pac-12 review. I just want to start it out with that's who we're going to talk about this week. But the Pac-12 commissioner talking about like the super leagues and super conferences and stuff. This dude is a jackass. He thinks that the Pac-12 is still superior to all the other conferences. That's what he came out
No.
and said.
No,
He
he
said that
said
they have
he
no
said they're better
problem.
than the fucking Big 12, and he's 100% right.
Wait, but he's structuring that all on their media rights.
Yeah.
So I understand, but they're losing UCLA and USC. USC is one of their biggest deals when it comes to media rights.
Listen, I'm
Um,
saying as of now, obviously in 2, 3 years.
right. But as of now, USC is so their media rights are up at the end of this year. So all contracts will be signed for the Pac-12 with USC not a part of that. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out for them. They've already stated that the Pac-12 main games that there'll be 1 or 2 games played on main television. The rest of them will go to one of the sister networks like Apple or Amazon Prime to be able to play the rest of like, view the rest of the games. I
To
mean,
be
I think it would be
100% fair, that's all that fucking happens now. Like, you have your
right, right,
Oregon
right.
games and you have USC or UCLA maybe on
Mhm.
national TV. Outside of that, you need the Pac-12 network to watch any games because the rest of the Pac-12 fucking sucks and nobody wants to watch them.
Yeah,
So,
and I mean, we'll get into it. I think this year you're only gonna see Oregon and Utah games, but, um,
we'll get into it.
we'll see. Anyway,
Very good
there's a
topic.
lot of going on with UCLA that makes a lot of sense as to why they're making the move to the Big Ten. I did not realize how much in debt the athletic department is just at UCLA. So it had came out that they got a new athletic director a year ago. He came onto the scene, and the school is $100 million in debt just with their athletic department. They had also pre-COVID signed the second largest apparel endorsement deal with Under Armour. It was a 15-year, $280 million deal for them to wear Under Armour on all their athletes' apparel. Uh, During COVID, because UCLA was one of the schools that stopped play, they had canceled their game against shit. Who were they supposed to play? Um, anyway, it was a big school. They were supposed to play in a bowl game, but they canceled the game, and then Under Armour tried to cancel their contract, and so then UCLA sued. Um, Under Armour sued UCLA, and it came out this past week that Under Armour is going to pay UCLA $67.5 million to just drop all of the lawsuits. Under Armour also, during that time, signed a deal with Nike and Jordan, 6-year deal worth 46.5 million, which puts them at the amount of getting themselves out of debt and moving right into the Big Ten in that time, which is just crazy to see. Um,
I mean,
Starting
to
out
be
with
fair,
conf
they're in debt because nobody shows up to watch their shitty fucking teams play. The only good
yes,
the only good school or the only good team they have is their basketball team, and even that team is trash half the time. So, I mean, they're losing a shit ton of money because they're not selling any tickets. They played Oregon last year, and it wasn't a primetime spot. I'm pretty sure it was a 3:30 slot here on the East Coast. But it was the game of the week. College game day was there. UCLA was finally looking good. I think they only had one loss at the time. Oregon only had one loss at the time. Like, this is going to be like a huge battle, and for as big as the game as that was, the stands were half fucking empty. I remember sitting there watching the game going, "What the fuck is going on?" Like, I would expect this if like UCLA was like 0-6 at this point, and
Yeah.
but this was a marquee game in their season, and they were winning for most of it too. Like, they won, they were leading through halftime. It wasn't until like midway through the third quarter where Oregon took the lead, and then from there it was back and forth. Like, it wasn't a blowout. It was a really good game, and the stands were half empty. And I remember sitting going, the fuck am I watching? Like, I honest to God, I thought I
the
was watching.
Maryland game.
Yeah, that's what I was like. It baffled my mind, but yeah. So to me, it's not surprising. I mean, it probably has nothing to do with it, but
I want another, Nerfy just now. But,
shut the fuck. This
anyway,
motherfucker.
so the crazy part about this is that I think they said is the marketing director and the athletic director were the ones that were talking about this a couple weeks ago, and they had said that the biggest deal that they need from this Big Ten deal is they believe that this is gonna allow them to market their players better, which kinda points at the NIL deals. So I think that that's what they're looking at in from a recruiting standpoint, being able to get the, bigger name players because they'll be able to get they're still from California, so they'll be able to get a lot of the deals, um, like sponsorship deals for their athletes that say Ohio State's not gonna pull something from California to sponsor, like, just
That-
deals like that that will really benefit them in terms of Big Ten play because 'cause they'll only
That's
be competing with USC.
that's bullshit. Because if you are in, they're in the conference they're in now. If you can't draw people to come play in fucking LA in one of the most historic stadiums in all of college football, that's your own deal, and I can guarantee you going to another conference isn't gonna solve that because those kids from California ain't gonna wanna fly to Wisconsin in the middle of November to play a fucking game and get blown out by 35 points. Like, it's not gonna happen. You have issues on your own that you need to figure out in the Pac-12. Going to the Big Ten isn't gonna solve a lot of these issues. I can tell you right now. They might be decent, but I honestly feel like playing in the Pac or the Big Ten is going to turn a lot of these kids away, and not from USC because Lincoln Riley is a very good recruiter. But UCLA more so because listen, hey, they're not that good. It's going to take a lot to turn that program around. And like I said, I don't want to fly to Wisconsin, Northwestern. I don't want to fly to these, these middle of nowhere schools and play in the middle of winter and just get my ass beat.
Well,
And
I don't think that that's the I think that it's more, nowadays, college football is almost like there's the 5 to 10 teams that I mean, you have the top 3 teams, which we already know came out in your AP rankings that you went over, that are, like, gonna be there every year,
mhm,
but it's like 10 teams that have a chance at getting up there. I think the rest of them are just competing for TV time. So I think that's the biggest thing that USC and UCLA get out of this is every Saturday their game will be on TV. So they're from a personal standpoint, me as a wide receiver or a linebacker or whatever, my team could get blown out all 12 games of the season. But I got to be on TV to where recruiters are seeing me beat the shit out of the guy on the other side of the ball for me, like at whatever position they're playing. So I think that my thought process, that's the biggest thing I see in this switch over from NIL, from possibly getting into the NFL from that standpoint.
I mean, I see where you're coming from, but at the same time, we have dudes from fucking Appalachian State who their only game of the year that ever gets put on TV is when they play on a Thursday night. And if you are good enough, people will find you no matter what. And I used to go by that same philosophy for years, where like, oh, like only the best draft picks come from these top schools that are on TV week in and week out. And I mean, the Big Ten is going to get a huge boost here with their new TV deal. They're going to be on NBC, CBS, and Fox, and then whatever games aren't on national TV are going to get put on these really good streaming services. And so USC and UCLA are lucking out there, and that's where a lot of these other um, conferences are fucking up is I mean, the SEC has a lock with ESPN. They have the SEC network. They're going to have all their games on all the ESPN channels now. And you have ESPN Plus where you can stream all the other games. But the ACC and the Big 12 and the Pac 12 are falling way too far behind, and I don't understand why they can't realize this shit. And we can say the same thing about all these other sports organizations too. I argue the same thing about IndyCar all the time. If you want to grow the sport, you need to be the first of your kind to beat people to these streaming services and get a really good deal there and grow your brand on these streaming services because this is where everybody's headed. Like we're always going to have our cable TV and our Hulu Live, Fubo TV, whatever it may be, to watch live national TV. But at the same time, more people are going to be switching to just regular Hulu or Netflix, whatever it may be, to watch these other games. And if your conference can get there and establish yourself, you're going to be set. The Big Ten has done it. The SEC has done it. I feel like the ACC is probably the next closest. I know they have a shit ton of games on ESPN Plus. Um, Outside of like their marquee games, they're not really ever on national TV. Um, but the Big Ten, or excuse me, the Big 12 and the Pac 12 need to get their shit together. And like we're going to talk about it here in a little bit, but um, if I'm the Pac 12, I just fucking I try and join up with either the Big 12 or the Big 10.
Or
And
get someone like Mac or someone to partner with them.
I would say the Mount, yeah.
Just so they have, like, a lot more teams to be able to play, you know?
I mean, yeah, but at the same time, it's not about adding more teams as much as it is the quality of teams. Like they can go out there and they could easily pick up like a Mountain West Conference, and the Mountain West Conference has like 3 or 4 pretty good schools, but at the same time, it'd be great to pick them up, but you got to think you're also picking up New Mexico State and all these bottom tier shit teams that I haven't won more than 3 games in 10 years, um, and that's the biggest question mark going forward. Is hey, it would be perfect to join up with like a group of 5 conference and just merge and be set, but at the same time, you're tainting your own pool then by like I said, bringing in all these city teams. Which granted, every Power 5 conference has shitty teams. Pac 12 has Arizona, Colorado, Washington, but you could argue they're going to get better, so on. Um, but I feel like the worst teams in Power 5 conferences are far better than the worst teams in Group of 5 conferences. And like I said, it'd be great to say, hey, the Pac 12 is going to go out and merge with the Mountain West tomorrow, and everything's solved. But like I said, at the same time, you're absorbing those terrible fucking teams, which are going to do nothing for your brand.
Yeah. So, for those listening, the reason
Oh,
we're on
oh,
this
you're still
topic,
there.
I am. I am. You guys, listen. You guys are having a good conversation. I wasn't about to step in. But for those listening, we're on this topic because we wanted to discuss whether the Pac-12 was able to save themselves. Um, it's pretty clear what these two think about it. I just wanted to say the only prayer that this conference really has, and it's an absolute prayer, is Notre Dame. We all know that's not going to happen. So you look at the two big front runners right now in conversation to join the Pac-12 are currently San Diego State and Houston. Um, Not exactly what I would
Hu-
consider to be. What? Go
Houston's
ahead.
going. Houston already signed with the Big 12.
They did. Okay.
Yeah.
I just happened to see a report. I didn't know for sure. It didn't say like that they were. It just said that that's who they were looking at. So okay. So you got San Diego State as your top front runner right now. Um, the Pac-12's biggest selling point, and it's good that you guys were talking about like TV and stuff like that, is their late window TV time. So with most of the teams being over there on the West Coast, obviously you get some of those later times that aren't going to be filled with, East Coast games and whatnot. The SEC and the Big Ten were the two best conferences in the NCAA overall before this whole super conference thing started, and obviously since then they've gotten deeper on the team rosters. So the Pac-12, like I believe it was George who said, is already way behind the eight ball on this, along with the ACC, the Big 12, and quite honestly, I really don't think that there's a chance of recovering, barring some absolute miracle that I don't see it happening.
As soon as, so if the Pac-12 were to save itself, there's two routes for me that I see. One is like I already said, combine with either the Big 12, which I don't think is going to happen now because the two
They're
commissioners
shit
won't.
talking each other.
Yeah, they won't shut the fuck up and realize that they're hurting each other more than they are helping anything by
Mhm.
saying, "Oh, my conference is better than yours." Well, no, mine
They're
is, and you're a
fighting
dumbass.
over they're fighting over 4th place.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my favorite. They're fighting over a dead body. Like, no, this is my girlfriend. No, that's my girlfriend. Like, that's just is how stupid they are. But like I said, they already have rich ties with the Big Ten. Just join together and say, hey, we have these four divisions now, and it would basically, in my mind, just go back to being the way it was before. Um, Four divisions play each other. You either have those two champions play each other, and they move on, and then those two winners go to the fucking Rose Bowl, like it's been for years. But the bowl structure is so fucked up anymore with the playoffs and everything. Um, that
That the
I don't.
Rose Bowl could be in the playoffs and neither of them
Yeah.
play. Yeah.
Um, it's it's just frustrating to see. But as far as teams to add to expand, I have four down that I think would be really great additions for them. One is San Diego State. The other is Boise State. Boise State has a natural rivalry with Oregon. Every time they play, almost every time there's a fight that breaks out. I remember, I want to say it was 2010 when they played at Boise State and LeGarrette Blunt punched the dude in the face. Like that's a memory that's always stuck in my head. Um, they play next year, I'm pretty sure. The other two are Utah State and Fresno State. Utah State would be a great rivalry with Utah, obviously in state, and Fresno State as well with the other California schools that are staying behind, like Stanford, Cal, and San Diego State if they can add them. So I mean, there's plenty of good teams out there that the Big Ten, or excuse me, the Pac-12 could definitely add, and like I said, to bolster. Um, but I think we're heading to the point now with college football where I would add this just rather see like five divisions and get rid of the word conference. Like we just have five divisions. We have the West, the Northeast, the Southeast, the Midwest, whatever. And you have all these teams, and they get geographically placed, and then those teams advance, and then you get one wild card team, and there's your 16 playoff, and then hey, we go from there. Um, do I think that'll ever happen? No, because honestly, the college football playoff committee, the NCAA, and these commissioners are just too boneheaded and stubborn.
now I
Outside
did
of the
see
SEC and the Big Ten. Sorry, I just want to say that.
I did see a report that the committee actually had gotten together, and while it
I was going to talk
wasn't,
about that. Yeah,
yeah, it wasn't
it was like a
officially
5 minute
discussed.
conversation. It
Yeah,
was like, hey, should we do this? And I read the same report. It was like,
yeah,
hey, um, it was like I think just brought up, and everybody's like, should we do this? And then it was a very quick conversation, and people said, listen, the baby steps before baby steps, and like this is something that could take another 5 years to even
Yeah.
become a full blown conversation and thought. But yeah, case I cut Nick off literally. He was talking about there was a report came out today. Um, the College Football Playoff Committee held a meeting and said, should we just leave the NCAA behind and create like our own governing body? Which I've heard it rumored before is because I can't think of his full name. I know it's Mark, the head of the NCAA, was like, "There's no fucking point in the NCAA anymore," and he has even admitted that himself. So again, I think that's very far away, but it'll be definitely interesting to see if that's where we're headed.
Yeah, so I mean, getting into some talk about this season, can USC surpass Utah in the South? Nick, what do you think about USC, new coach Lincoln Riley's there? Do you think that he's able to put this stellar list of transfers and recruits that he's brought in on the field and them all to, really um, be able to play well together to get past Utah, who was really on fire last season?
Yeah. I think USC is going to have a great season, especially in terms of the seasons they've had recently. However, Utah is going to look just as good, if not better, as they did last year. And I think that USC, with everything new that's come to the team, whether it's coach, players, etc., I think it's going to take them a couple games to really get into full swing. And I think those first couple games, um, they might end up dropping one or two of those early ones, and will put them uh, kind of outside looking in. And like I said, Utah. I don't want to get too far into this yet, but no, I do not think this year that USC will top Utah. However, I think they could play a little spoiler in their last season in the Pac-12 next year. Um, but I don't see it happening this year. I will say that there's a chance, but I personally at this time do not see it.
Yeah, so George, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think Utah is able to get it done again, or do you think UCLA is able to overturn the power right now?
Um, yeah, so I'm going to break this down for both teams in depth a little bit more than Nick did. With Utah, you have Cam Rising returning, who it came out of nowhere last year. He originally lost the starting job at Utah, and then I believe it was the third game of the year against San Diego State. He gets put in and just goes on a ridiculous run, 2,493 yards and 20 touchdowns. He's returning five of his top six pass catchers, which is huge. Three of the five offensive linemen. So this offense somehow only ranked 40th last year, and after watching that Rose Bowl, especially, I don't understand how it was that low, but I think that they should definitely rank a lot higher. Their defense did lose two huge players, Devin Lloyd and Nefe Sewell. Um, One of the Sewell brothers, his oldest brother plays for the Lions, and his younger brother actually plays at Oregon. Um, but I think they return enough players and they get enough out of the transfer portal this year, especially Muhammad. I'm going to say this. His name is spelled diabetes, but there's no way that's right. But that's how it's spelled.
Diabito.
Yeah. Um, and so I think this is definitely a team poised to make another run this year. As far as their schedule goes, their key games, they play Florida week one at Florida, San Diego State again. Then they have USC, obviously, in Oregon. Um, they're at Oregon this year. As far as USC, we could spend an entire episode alone talking about all the transfers they've got in this year. Um, they have excuse me, Caleb Williams coming in from Oklahoma, who has already cut up a Pac-12 defense in Oregon. Granted, you could argue it was depleted. Everybody either declared for the draft or just decided they didn't
No,
want to
we're not.
play.
We're not arguing that. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
um, and then Jordan Anderson is the other big transfer they get from Pitt, the Bolitnikoff winner from last year. Um, Again, as far as they go, their schedule is a cakewalk this year. They don't play Oregon, which I think they catch a break. Their hardest game out of conference is the last game of the year. They host Notre Dame. Um, so I have them going 11-1. I also have Utah going 11-1, but I have Utah winning at or excuse me against USC, and I think it's just enough for them to get back to the Pac-12 championship game this year. Um, so yeah, I have Utah winning again this year, at least in the South. I don't want to say the conference winner. I want to say South.
Yeah. That's why I didn't get into too much details yet because I got that stuff written. I was
Yeah.
like, I'll save it. I'll save it.
So yeah, I think that kind of in agreement. I think that Utah is going to be able to continue to get it done this season. I think they have a little bit of a tougher schedule in comparison to USC, but I do see USC getting 2 losses. I see them losing to Notre Dame, like you mentioned, and also Utah. I think that they could also take a loss to someone like Washington State or Arizona mid-season there, just
Mhm.
because, like Nick was saying, just having a rough time of getting everyone to work on the same level. And I think that they're gonna have a lot of problems with there being a lot of guys that want to be the star with all the transfers that they've gotten in. Just the type of offense and team that Lincoln Riley uh seems to run in my eyes at least. I think that they're gonna have a lot of guys that want the ball every play. And I think that about mid-season, right after the Utah game, especially if they lose that Utah game, I think that, yeah, like Arizona could definitely play like a spoiler for them in their season. I think that they're already going to have that loss to Utah, and if Utah wins out like expect also, George, I think that they're just going to have an easy path to the Big 12 championship then in
Yeah.
Utah.
And I just want to say real quick because I don't want to spend forever on this because I've talked enough tonight. But I mean, last year Nick and I talked about it right after Lincoln Riley got hired. I feel like I'm based on what I said then and even now in my head, I feel like I'm giving them more credit than probably what they deserve. Because in my mind, as far as I'm concerned, the USC head coaching job is a cursed job. Like they might get back to the Rose Bowl, before they depart for the Big Ten, and even when they get to the Big Ten, they might make the Rose Bowl. But ever since you had that dream team of Pete Carroll, Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart, and you had those guys go through there, ever since that program fell apart once they left, they have never been able to fully recover. Like I said, yeah, they made the Rose Bowl a couple years.
Sam
They won,
Darnold. Yeah.
yeah, but still, even then, you could argue that was a stacked team, and
Oh,
they
for
only
sure.
made the Rose Bowl. And
Yeah.
you think back before that, you had the teams come in. Matt Barkley was there, and everybody was like, "Oh, USC's back. Here we go." And I think they maybe won the Pac-12 one year when he was there. Like I said, I just feel like this is a cursed job, and no matter who they bring in there, this is just they'll get good again, but I don't think they'll ever get back to those days. I think that's what everybody's expecting to happen right off the bat this year alone, but especially going forward, is to that team to return to a team that makes the national championship every year, the college football playoff every year. And I personally, I just don't see that.
Yeah. It's unrealistic at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so do you guys think on the opposite side in the north that anyone is going to challenge Oregon this season? Nick, we'll start with you just because I feel like we're going to kind of have a long conversation on George's when it comes to his team.
Yeah.
Rightfully, it's
So
his team.
yeah, understandable. We did it. He's allowed to do it.
Yep.
But my answer is pretty simple, and I'm not just saying it to make George happy. I don't think anybody in the North is touching Oregon this year. They're returning a ton of talent and playmaking ability on the offensive side of the ball, on top of adding Bo Nix at QB, or at least he's the projected starter at this point. I think he'll be the starter at the beginning of the season and throughout the season. The defense could definitely use some improvements from last season. They had some great pieces, but there were things that they could have tidied up, and we've seen that especially towards the end of the year. But I think overall they're going to be better as a unit and serviceable enough to allow that high-powered offense to win games that they need to win.
Dude, that fucking defense last year made me want to paint my ceiling with my brain cells. But
Yeah,
yeah,
especially with some of the talent that was there.
oh
Like,
my god, like the first game against Utah was bad enough, but the second game in the Pac-12 championship was like there was zero changes from the first game, and I was
yeah,
just
like did you not learn
I'm
anything?
sitting there going, "How the fuck is this happening right now?" But yeah, so the team I have picked that I think will challenge Oregon the most, how much of a challenge that is, you could debate. I picked Oregon State. They had a surprise year last year, their first winning record since 2013. Excuse not, I think they might have had a 7-6 year before. No. Anyway, sorry. Their best year since 2013. Anyway, they returned their star QB and three offensive linemen. They definitely need a huge improvement on defense, but they did bring in a new defensive coordinator. And so I think this Oregon State team will be much improved from 7-6 last year. Whenever they play Oregon the last week of the regular season, it is always a tough game, no matter. And I mean that's what rivalry week is. It doesn't matter if you have the number one team playing the last, team 123. If it's a rivalry game, it's going to be close. Um, and I believe they're in Oregon State this year. I want to say I might be wrong on that, but I think they're in Oregon State. As far as Oregon goes, we have a new OC, a new QB, a new head coach, and I have new life in this team. Um, whether the QB is Bo Nix or Ty Thompson, we've seen flashes of Ty Thompson in the past year. Bo Nix has made his resume at Auburn. Um, I have a love hate relationship with him. He broke my heart in person in 2019 when I went to my first ever Oregon game. But he has shown flashes that he can be a great QB. I was watching a college football hate video this morning, but he, believe it was Texas A&M, and he like squirted out of the pocket, and all of a sudden he just ran over a dude and scored a touchdown. I was like, all right, well, I'm kind of excited for this year now. But like we said, defense was the worst part. But I'm hoping a defensive minded coach can help swing that momentum. I always thought back to the Chip Kelly and I can't think of his name now. He lost us a national championship, and I want to think about him again. Um,
Marcus
but for
Mariota.
no, the coach. Um, but for the longest time, Oregon did not give a shit about defense. We are lucky to have like one or two really good defensive players, and they would just carry our defense. Um, Mario Cristobal comes in, and he definitely recruited heavier on the defensive side, and the defense improved, but it still wasn't great. And like we said, we saw that last year. Now we have Dan Lanning coming in from Georgia. He was a defensive coordinator on a national championship team. He's already made huge recruits come in from the defensive side of the ball. So I'm super excited to see how much improved that defense is. As far as the offense, Kenny Dillingham will now be our new OC as well as quarterback coach. In the past, I think back to Herbert and Anthony Brown when they played under Cristobal. We understand what kind of talent Herbert is. We were seeing that in the NFL, and we saw how great he could be in college. Um, but I didn't think it was more so the system. I just thought, hey, maybe he's not ready yet. And then he went to the NFL and jumped the gun, and now he's arguably the top 5 QB in the NFL. You look at Anthony Brown, who's I thought was the worst fucking quarterback I've ever seen at times last year. Um, I believe he's on the Ravens now. In his preseason debut, he was throwing the ball around like he was going to win the goddamn Heisman. And I understand now how terrible our QB system was last year and years prior. Um, so I did some digging, and I promise this is the last thing we're going to talk about with Oregon. But Kenny Dillingham's QB development under him. So at 2017 to 2018, he was at Memphis. 2017, he had Riley Ferguson, threw for 38 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He had a 161.2 passer rating. 2018, we had Brady White, 26 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 150.7 passer rating. 19, he worked with Bo Nix at Auburn. In that offense, he threw 16 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, had a 125 passer rating. Dillingham left the next year. Bo Nix went 12 touchdowns, 7 interceptions for a 123 passer rating. So a little bit of a drop off. So I mean, if he's going to come and take over Bo Nix again, hopefully, we can see him return to his top tier. And at 2020 and 2021, he was a Florida State offensive coordinator. Jordan Travis is a QB both years. 2020, he went 6 for 6 with a 128 passer rating. Last year, 15 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 148 passer rating. So I mean, he got his feet wet. Granted, that Florida State roster sucked, and I'm not going to argue that. So I'm very hopeful for what I'm going to see here with I would argue a top tier offense and great pieces around him, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I agree with you guys. I think that Oregon is going to be top dog in the North. I don't think anyone's going to challenge them. Do you guys think that? So I think that we are all in agreement that Oregon wins the North. So when talking about the South, we had talked about USC. Not really. I think we all agreed that USC is most likely not going to get it done against Utah this year. But do you see anyone else besting Utah in the South to make it to the Pac-12 championship? George, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on the South?
If there is any other team in the South that could, even challenge Utah or USC for that matter, it would have to be Arizona State. Um, I mean, again, they didn't have the greatest year last year. Um, I mean, 7-6 isn't terrible, but like I said, as far as if there is anybody left to challenge, it would have to be Arizona State in my mind.
Nick, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about Arizona State a little later. I don't think that they're gonna be good enough to challenge, but to overall answer the question, no. If it's not UNC, I don't think it's anybody.
UNC is in the ACC,
Or sorry, USC,
Utah.
not
Oh,
UNC.
USC. Yeah.
right? I know what he meant,
I
but I was sitting there going, like, wait a minute.
I knew something sounded weird too, and
Jude
I was
likes
repeating it in my
Jude
head
likes
like,
North
what did I
Carolina
say?
too much.
It is what it is.
uh,
Still got
um,
the $5 bet on the Natty.
You keep
yes.
fucking putting teams in the wrong
I
conferences
know,
and
dude.
can't say names right. God damn,
Yep.
we're a
I
shit
just
show.
for anybody listening, I just want to point out that heard last week. I re-looked at my notes after the show, and it clearly said Jets, but my dumbass can't read, and I
Jags.
said Jags. So it is.
Your
Yeah, they're close. They both
your
start with
G
a
looks
J.
like a T. Yeah. uh. So yeah, I think that it's. I think we'll be surprised to see anyone but Oregon and Utah in the Pac-12 this year. Competing for the championship. Um, Kind of moving into our most improved, what our outlook is on this upcoming season. I think that kind of based off of like what George and I and Nick had said, I think that USC is going to be my most improved team. I think that they went like 4-8 last year or something like that.
Yep,
Uh,
coordinate.
And, so I think that if they do what I think they're going to do and have 3 losses, or if they do what George thinks and 1 loss, I think either way, that's a massive improvement from the 4-8 of last season. So I find it hard for any team to kinda get a better turnaround than that for this season. Nick, what are your thoughts on most improved?
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I honestly think that USC is like the only viable choice here. Now, granted, it is UNC or UNC. I said it again.
God
USC.
damn it.
Fuck me. USC.
Damn it, time and place.
So I will. I won't put it on the air though. Everybody will show
Okay. Yeah.
up. Yeah, it is USC. So if there's any team, especially in the Pac-12, that can take high expectations and completely shit the bed with them, um, it's going to be USC. However, I think they just have too much to do that. Like you said, they went 4-8 last year, and I honestly, being conservative, I have them sitting in the 8 to 10 win range, which obviously you're adding 4 to 6 wins to your win total from last year. I don't think anybody in the Pac-12, maybe even anybody in college, is going to compete with adding 6 wins. So
Yeah, George, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I also have USC written down, but we've talked about them enough. I also added a Washington to my most improved, as much as I hate to say it. But they're bringing in a new head coach, which I am actually kind of excited to see. He comes over from Fresno State. I think he's going to do great things there. He's already done a lot on the recruiting side and with the transfer portal. Now, is this a team, like I said, that I think will compete fully 100%? No, I don't think they're ready yet. But I think they're definitely gonna be much improved and much more bearable to watch than the 4-8 team they were last year. I definitely think they can make bowl eligibility. Um, so as far as most improved overall, outside of bringing in a new head coach and just transfer portal, um, for a team that has to basically start from scratch and rebuild themselves, that's why I have them as my most improved alongside USC. But yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, kind of going off of that, we could switch over to our most declining teams for this season and who we think is going to have a really rough 2022 season. George, we can just go right back to you. What are your thoughts on the most declined this year?
I put UCLA just because I think the entire situation over there is a shit show. I'm not gonna go into too much depth, so you can cover it. Yeah, I just think it's a complete shit show over there. And I think as a whole, that team is probably looking forward to leaving the conference. And now that Big Brother's back in town and USC is expected to beat the shit out of them now, I think it's gonna wear a lot on their psyche, and I don't think they're gonna perform as well.
Yeah, Nick, what are your thoughts on most declining team this year?
yeah, so this is where Arizona State comes in for me. I chose them as my most declined team. Um, on top of a huge loss of talent to the transfer portal, and a fairly good amount of staffing changes, they're also currently under NCAA investigation. Um, you got new coordinators all around, new players all around, and a constant negative energy in the university as a distraction does not add up very well to trying to repeat their 8-5 performance of last year. Now, granted, if they can keep those distractions off of the field, I think they have a whole lot better chance. But um, as someone who is continuously watching an organization every week that deals with fucking negative press, again, I'm a Washington fan. I'm used to seeing it. It is hard to keep that stuff off the field as much as, outsiders might think, oh, well, that has nothing to do with the playbook or like it when your organization or university or whatever is toxic, it carries over everywhere, whether it's the practice field, the football field, the press conferences, whatever it is, and throughout the entirety of a season that starts to um, definitely eat at you as a team. So that's a huge reason why I have Arizona State as the most declined.
Yeah, so I had also, like George, put UCLA as my most declined team. For kind of similar reasons to both of you. George stated that I mean USC is going to be expected to pound the shit out of them from now until
Pause.
Lincoln Riley.
You can keep talking. You
Oh,
said the shit out
oh,
of him. I was like, oh, oh, pause.
I thought you were pausing the podcast. Um,
Pac-12's gonna get a new streaming deal over on Pornhub.
Yeah, anyway, so, I mean, they're gonna be expected to lose, and then also with just all of the money problems that I had talked about at the beginning of the Pac-12 part here, I just think that there's a lot of distractions off the field. Um, I think that they're just gonna be looking to kind of start playing, as much as they probably hate to say this, in some snowy weather on some bigger TV deals. Like, I mean, I think that they're just gonna be excited to just kinda move away from where they're at right now, kinda new start. Um, at that point, I would assume they would get a lot of the same, money contributions and stuff that the media deals are offering to the Big Ten schools now. So it should help bolster for from a recruiting standpoint and all these other things. For them to have a really good start once they get to the Big Ten. I think that I mean I would be surprised to I would not be surprised to see them sitting at like 5 wins on the season this year. So yeah, oh sorry, I was just reading your thing, George. Um so so do you guys wanna move into the top 5 of the week?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. So, George picked the top 5 of the week this week, and it's most overrated stadiums. Um, George, do you wanna go first or last since it's your topic?
I'll go first because I got a controversial one at the top. Now when I said top five overrated scenes, I meant in like terms of like atmosphere. Like people are like, oh, this is
Oh,
always like. Let me guess. You
okay.
you pick like architecturally ugly stadiums.
No,
No,
no, no,
not
no, no.
necessarily, but I did take it very literally, and like
You're
my
good, you're
number
good.
one,
Okay.
for example, might not be counted as like
Okay.
as a elite stadium, but I think
Okay.
it's shit, so I put it.
Well, fair. But I went in the sense of like people are like, oh, like this atmosphere is just like out of this world. Um,
Live
for
or
ex-
die by it.
right. For example, number five, I put Happy Valley. Now listen, no, listen. I
But you
when
haven't
you
experienced a whiteout yet.
I no, and I'm not just saying like outside of the whiteout
Right,
and
right, right.
the other night game, which is usually the stripe out. I feel like it's a shit environment. Like, I mean, I'm not saying it's bottom tier. Obviously, it's not as bad as Northwestern, but I definitely don't feel like week in, week out, it is like what a lot of people claim to be is the number one environment in college football. I 100% agree. I haven't experienced a whiteout in person. I've seen it on TV, and I would argue, yeah, that is probably one of the craziest environments in college football. But you can't hang your hat on one game a year as a school and
You sure as
say,
fuck can. You should have seen the disappointment when Ohio State was the noon game.
I know. But I mean, unless it's a big game, I feel like it's a half empty stadium, three quarters empty. I would say now. When they sucked, it was a half empty stadium. But when you want to sit there and argue that Penn State has this what I think the second biggest stadium in all of college football,
Yep, behind
if
Michigan.
yeah, and outside of those 2 games, like I mentioned, it's like half empty. To me, I can't put that as one of my like top college football environments. Number 4, I put USC. Again, everybody talks about going into the Coliseum, and it's such a surreal experience, and it's always packed. Even when USC was top shit, I didn't think it was anything outrageous. Their band is obnoxious, and they play that stupid da 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 every 5 fucking seconds, and I thought that was annoying. Outside of that, I didn't think that the fans were anything insane or crazy, and especially now since they suck. Well, of course, now they're probably gonna be better, but still, wh when I when I think of a classic college football environment, even when that team sucks, it's still gonna be packed. Like, to be fair, a lot of the SEC schools, like LSU, if LSU sucks, they're still packing out just about every damn near game. And so that's why I have USC at 4. Number 3, I went with an NFL team. I put Seattle here. Everybody talks about, especially back in the Legion of Boom days. Oh, it's the loudest environment and it's so tough. I think people just didn't like playing in the cold. I don't think it was necessarily crowd. That's all I'm going to say about that. Number 2, I put Texas because fuck Texas. Um, every year people talk about, oh, we have a road game at Texas and it's going to be a weird environment. They put a vagina in their stadium now, and they lost to Kansas there. I don't think you can argue that's a tough environment anymore. And number 1,
Maybe the most valid argument we might ever hear on this
yeah.
podcast.
And in case anybody thinks I'm joking, no, they literally have what looks like a uterus in their stands now. In number 1, I have Florida in the swamp. Um, I think it's an overrated environment. It hasn't been good since Tim Tebow was there, and even then, I would argue it wasn't even that great. To be fair, I got this point from Unnecessary Roughness, a podcast I absolutely hate, but they do have a good clip every once in a blue moon. But they talked about everybody says it's a great environment because you feel like you're right on top of the field. Like that means nothing. And even when they play really good teams, like when Alabama went there last year, I thought that the stadium was really fucking quiet. That's all I'll say. So Florida's my number 1.
Nick, what's your top 5?
Yeah, so I didn't understand. George is pretty uh what's the word I'm looking for?
Broad?
I don't know. Fuck yeah, broad. With his top 5 sometimes. So I went through all sports and pretty much every stadium that I could think of.
Yeah,
So
fuck those cricket stadiums.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, to be 100% fair, I mean, somebody would come on here and say, "Oh, Barcelona Stadium," and I agree. These are just like I said, these are my top 5, and
Yeah, I gotcha. I wasn't sure. So
you can put a
uh
soccer stadium on there. I don't care.
no, I did not put a soccer. I don't watch enough soccer to make any comments about soccer stadiums. All right. Um, all right. So, which is funny because my first one is a baseball one, and I just started watching. But nonetheless, number 5, I went with Fenway Park. Um,
Oh,
hold,
okay.
hear me out. Hear me out. So I would have put it higher on the list, but I do have respect for its history and its story and all that. Um, 2 main reasons. One, it's hella old school. It's 2022. You'll see that a lot in these picks that I made. The old school stadiums. Um, it just doesn't fit the times. And then, uh, as you could
It's like
probably
Babe
imagine,
Ruth still plays there.
yeah, exactly. Like whatever. But and of course you have the Green Monster. I don't really need to go into detail about that. Number 4, this I'm not gonna lie to you. If this list doesn't get some argument, I'll be surprised. So number 4, I went with Lambeau Field. Um,
Oh my
another,
god!
He's
yeah, I
he's
know, I
picking
know.
the top.
Holy shit!
I'm coming after it. So again, another old school stadium that needs renovated. The only problem is the old design of that stadium makes it difficult as fuck to renovate. Add into that temperatures inside the stadium can reach below 0, and like I like the cold. I definitely don't like below 0. Um, that's all I need to say about it.
I
Number
would
3,
argue I would argue their renovations have made that stadium 10 times better. And then you think of environments, playing in fucking freezing temperatures is a key. Although
yeah,
when they get to the playoffs, it doesn't matter if they play in fucking California or at home, they still suck. But
yeah, I'm thinking of like when I thought about these, I tried to think of like everything. So like how the fans would feel about it, how other teams would feel about all that shit.
I
So
think we've learned the fans do not give a shit there.
that's fair. Like, I mean,
They
granted,
put a
in
cheese
Wisconsin,
head on
they
and
have
like
yeah,
call it warm.
they
Yeah,
have nothing better to care about in
yeah, they
Wisconsin. Like,
if they drink enough beer and the cold doesn't affect them.
yeah. So number 3, I got the Superdome. Um, yeah, I get it. Hurricane Katrina, whatever. Um, it's an aging
Hurricane
stadium.
tortilla.
It's an aging stadium. Massive domes were hot for like 5 minutes. They're no longer hot, unfortunately, to New Orleans. Um, in my opinion, it's really a boring stadium that's only loved by New Orleans. So I hear a lot of hype about it, but I really don't get all that hype. Number 2, I went with Mile High Stadium. The only cool thing about the stadium is the location of it. Other than that, everything sucks. The design blocks out the view of the landscape around it. Um, like Lambeau Field, but not quite as bad. It gets cold as hell, and the amenities there are not up to par with the rest of the league. So obviously, fans aren't going to be happy about that. And number 1, I wanted to move this somewhere else, but I hate this fucking stadium so much that I had to put it one. Um, I went with MetLife Stadium for a stadium that hosts not one but two pro sports teams was super fucking expensive and is in arguably the biggest sports market in the world. The stadium is just dull. It's boring. Not to mention the fact that it's not even in New York, and the two teams that play in it are named after New York. None of it makes fucking sense. Like MetLife Stadium should just be demolished, in my opinion.
I thought with the way you started that list with Fenway Park and Lambeau Field being on there, the rest of the list is going to be way more
See, I wanted to put them
controversial. But
higher because I felt like with putting that up there that they should be higher. But like I do have respect for those two stadiums, so I didn't want to completely fucking shit.
okay. So I went with overrated atmospheres. Nick went with overrated architecture. Slade, what do you have?
So I just want to start it out with George, with your Happy Valley comment. A half-filled stadium is a full-filled stadium in Oregon. So I just want to start out with that. Oregon Stadium
Okay.
seats
Oh,
54,000. So on a weekend that Penn State's playing Michigan High School of Architects, um, they still will have more kids in the stadiums than
it doesn't matter
Oregon
how
will
many.
have
Doesn't
for a
matter how many
for a
people you
night
have
game
show up
against
when they
Oregon
sound
State.
like fucking crickets. Oregon has 60,000 show up and you can't hear shit. Hence,
That
before
I
the
don't know.
whiteout,
I
no, no,
lived
no,
right
no,
next
no.
door to it, and I couldn't hear shit every time there was a game. So I
Before,
don't know. Maybe the
before the
game
whiteout, you
maybe
no. Before the whiteout, you want to know what Penn State fan base was called? It was called the quietest 100,000 in all of sports. And all of a sudden, you get this one big game, and it was like, oh, we're such a cool fucking fan base. You're fucking not. You steal the Seven Nation Army chant. You steal Sweet Caroline. You run around acting like you fucking invented the shit. It's
they made it
bullshit.
theirs.
No, they fucking.
listen,
Anyway,
I would bring Mo Bamba up in that conversation
yeah, yeah,
if
yeah.
anything, because that's what really gets the people going.
Check
I mean,
West.
obviously, it wasn't around,
Yeah, yeah.
forever.
So my number 5, in agreement with Nick, I did the Saints Superdome. I think the only good part about it is if there is a second Hurricane Katrina, it'll be the only place that people can go and be safe if they sit up in the nosebleeds. Um,
That's not where you want to sit. You want to sit at the bottom. That roof will rip off and you'll die.
Well, I'll sit at the top then. Fuck.
no, they don't want to drown at the bottom is what I was getting at. It's water.
So like mid level, we're talking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the fourth one, I went with MetLife, because fuck Jersey, and why would you have 2 teams named New York and play New Jersey? Doesn't make sense to me. Um, number 3 and number 2, I went with teams just because of being rivals to Penn State. I went with the Horseshoe because fuck
Oh,
Ohio
oh
State,
my god.
and,
Hey, if you
number
could say because
2
fuck Texas, he's allowed to say because fuck Ohio State.
No,
right, and
I'm
number
just saying about
2
the fact that like the only 4 people that listen to this are from Ohio.
yeah.
Okay?
So
Can't wait
no,
to
my
hear about
parents
this one.
listen to it. And
Fair.
the second one, is the big house in Michigan because fuck Michigan.
But from a
Sorry, Evan.
from a atmosphere standpoint, I would honestly also argue Michigan because again, much of the same way I feel about Penn State, unless it's a big game, I really feel like Michigan fans just don't show up. And to go back to Penn State, I would argue that half the time they don't show up because they're out fucking getting shit faced. Like I said, unless it's the night game, when it's a night game, Penn State is, like I said,
But it's also with
absolutely on
Ohio
another.
State because Ohio State, they had that game, what, 2 years ago where or 3 years ago, it's before COVID. uh, their team was up like 24-0 in the first quarter, and everyone left, and they ended up losing the game.
I would too. I would too.
Yeah, but
Fair. I can get
so
drunk a whole lot cheaper in the parking lot than I can in the
Exactly.
stadium.
my number one is Yankee Stadium. Sorry, George.
Fine.
Ooh.
Uh,
I thought about
It
putting it
just
on, but
it
I
just
knew
doesn't
this
make
late in
sense to
the
me
podcast
that
I didn't wanna do
someone
it.
with an open checkbook can just continue to sign these big name people because they know that they get to play at least half the year at home. So if they can get at least enough guys on juice to hit the ball over the stadium, they can win at least half the games. Um,
You keep arguing this. Fucking go follow the Twitter page. Would it dong? And half the time when they hit, oh my, I'm not even getting into this
no,
because
no, no,
I'll
no. I'm saying that they don't hit enough home runs, even with the
I would argue
architecture of it.
I would argue
I'm
that now.
saying that. What's that?
I said I would argue that now because they fucking suck right now.
Yeah, but
Hey,
I'm
Aaron
saying
Judge can
that
still hit home runs.
for all of the
But
massive people that they have on their team, you would think that they would get like that they would have no problem making it deep, deep into the playoffs. But for some reason, they keep losing 2, sometimes 3
because
games
Aaron
a
Boone's a
season.
fucking
Don't
trash can.
don't get him started, Mr. Hogan. Ooh, 27 or whatever the fuck
No, I
it is.
don't. I am not that Yankees fan. I don't bitch about fucking World Series titles that we haven't won since
You
2009.
took a lot of offense to the "would it dong."
What it
But no, like honestly, like as far as baseball stadium, I would say the new Yankee Stadium is definitely overrated in terms of not just architecture but atmosphere. Outside of the lights they flicker when we hit a home run, like that's it. Like the old Yankee Stadium just had so much history and you know character to it that it was arguably one of the best stadiums in baseball. The new one, I definitely am not a big fan of. So from that standpoint, yeah, I absolutely agree. It's probably an
The
overrated
judge's
stadium.
chamber.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, from those standpoints, I would absolutely agree. It's probably an overrated stadium in terms of all. But just to put it at number one, just because you don't like the fucking Yankees anymore, that's your own goddamn problem. But that will do it for our show. Exciting news this weekend. We'll be filming our first ever vlog with the three of us. We are super excited. Slade is going to get his ass beat, and he will lose the Jack Wagon Cup for the first time. So we are excited to bring that. Um, Nick, who do you think is going to win, and what do you think the winning score will be?
He
So I
doesn't say
believe
himself. Like, what the fuck?
Okay,
yeah.
well, okay, all right. Here, no. What do you think the winning score will be? We'll just do that.
So I'm gonna stick with my guns again here because I don't like changing my mind. I believe I'd said in the group chat 109
Yeah.
because we're being fairly strict about the rules here. So I'm
Okay,
going with 109.
that's fair. Slade, what about you?
Um, yeah, sure. I'll agree with that score. I think that the big number to guess will be how many hot dogs are eaten in the round. But
I 100%. I'm good for two at the turn.
yeah,
Dude,
So
that's the one thing I gotta say. Caledonia might not be the best course around here, but their fucking glizzies are immaculate. They got some big old thick boys.
I bet they do.
Oh yeah, I'm telling you, dude. I'll swallow 3 of them easy.
took Nick back to his high school days underneath the stadium bleachers.
Yeah.
I am actually going to go lower. I'm going to go 104. Um, I have legit broken 100. I'm not obviously again. I'm not saying I'm going to this week, but I think the three of us will push each other to play the best we can. Um, I definitely think we're going to affect each other mentally. So I don't want to say below 100 because I don't really feel like that's reasonable
I feel like
yet.
we've all kind of hit a stride recently, and I
Yeah.
think the 3 of us
Uh,
being together, like you said, is really gonna push us.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with 104. But yeah, nonetheless, it's at Piney Apple Golf Course this weekend. It's gonna be a ton of fun, and we are excited to do it. And then we will let you know who won next week. We will let you know when the video's out, so you guys can go check that out and find out who
You'll
won.
know, guys. It'll be right here behind me.
Yeah, okay.
It's not
So
even behind you now. What do you mean?
yeah,
In the
it's in his
fucking garage on top of the beer fridge.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna build you a shelf, and I'm gonna make you an L so you can put that behind you, so everybody knows you're a fucking loser.
I don't think there's
But
room for that.
yeah. But anyway, thank you all so much for checking out this episode. We had a lot of fun bringing it to you. Again, if you are checking us out on YouTube, we hope you enjoyed the new presentation. I will try and get better at the backgrounds this week. I 100% forgot about them. And then halfway through the Pac-12 preview, I looked down and went, "Oh shit, I'm supposed to do the backgrounds." But we wanted to give this broadcast a little bit of legitimacy, and so hopefully this helps with that. And excited to keep growing and bring you guys new, fun, exciting content. Uh, with that said, we will see you guys on the next episode, and have a great week.
See everybody.